now's the time to kind of take a step back if possible, recognise what you could change and make life a lot easier for next year. Maybe the setup of your lambing pens, the flow of getting ewes and lambs in and out of pens, for even cleaning out your lambing pens, that you're not caught in tight corners, that you've even a 4 or 5 foot passageway that you can get a wheelbarrow down, you can clean them, you have access to get ewes and lambs in and out of them. It just makes things an awful lot easier, I do find.
Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. In this episode, we're joined by Niall Conaty from Teagasc Agricultural College Ballyhaise to share some practical tips for the lambing shed. We cover everything from pen setup to pen layout, group pens and dedicated areas for problem ewes. Niall offers us insights on streamlining tasks to reduce workload during this busy period. We also discuss how simple additions such as whiteboards or labels on pens can improve communication with those working in the lambing shed. We also discuss some best practices around recording replacements, identifying problem ewes, and how to maintain hygiene and biosecurity throughout lambing. We hear first from Niall, who discussed the importance of having supplies on hand during this busy period.
Yeah, so look, busy time, Kieran, and you want your supplies, all your lube, your gloves, lambing applicators, ropes, and having all of them there and having adequate supplies that you have them there throughout the lambing season.
Yeah, like even simple things, having the straw in hand in the shed, having a line there for you, having your adequate supply of buckets and that. It's all little things that just make it a wee bit easier at a real busy period.
It is, surely. It just means, look, it probably boils back down to the start of being prepared, have it all there at the start, and then it does leave the lamb in itself a lot more easier, and the flow of it goes on a lot better when you have straw in place, you have enough line there, and that's preventing a lot of things going forward in terms of hygiene in the lambing pens and ewe and lamb health, that you minimise any of them risks of coming in, that you're not running out of that lime and straw, especially at the vital times we do need it the most.
Neil, we'll just talk a little bit about setup for a minute. I suppose I want to come at this from two angles. Maybe we'll talk first just about the lambing pen setup, things that make that a little bit easier for you, whether it be the water lead on or otherwise. And then we might kind of focus a little bit on the workstation element. So maybe just first take the lambing pen setup. What leaves that a little bit easier in your experience?
Just having enough of them, definitely. Having the right type of pen set up, your drop down pins in your 5 or maybe 6 foot hurdles, having enough of them in place. I know generally the rule of thumb, you're talking about 1 per every 8 to 10 ewes, I suppose, in a compact lambing. And if you do recognise that you don't want to run out of them pens, you don't want to run out of them hurdles either. So it's having enough of them in place. If going by your rattling off your rams that you're going to have a busy compact first 2 weeks at lambing, you're probably looking at having 1 pen to suit 5 to 6 ewes even at them cases, and having enough of them in place, yeah.
In terms of the water setup, I know you have a couple of different examples in those individual pens in the college. Maybe just talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's probably more from a student point of view and from a farmer point of view that they get to see and recognise different water setups that we have. We have 3 different types. Ones, we have the long pipe with the ball cock on the end of it, and it's just an open slot where the ewe has access into full water at all times. You have the bowl, just a steel bowl with the bowl cock bolted on the wall. And then we have what probably a lot of farmers have in place is just a standard blue bucket. And then the one thing I probably have to say is the standard blue bucket, it's a lot of labour, all right. You're continuously filling them buckets up. But just my experience here, it's a great way of understanding to see how much ewes are actually drinking and that they are actually definitely drinking water, before you even let them at the grass afterwards.
I suppose like we're talking in individual pens, there is that labour element to it too. I take your latter point, definitely. The other 2 automatic setups, even that pipe at a basic level, it does cut out a wee bit of that workload and it's one less job you have to do.
It definitely is one less job you have to do. And, it is very simple setup. It's just bracket it onto the wall. You can do it as long as you want. We've one there to suit 7, 8 lambing pens. You could actually extend that to do 18 or 20 lambing pens in a row. It's just an opening at the very front of it. You can release it, and I do it maybe twice during the lambing season. Just clean it on out. It's up at a high enough area that the ewes can't actually dung into it, or can't get dirty or soiled it. And then it works out very well.
We're often creatures of habit. Pens generally get set up the same way. Look, sometimes it's ideal, sometimes it's not. In terms of just that flow and having it left a little bit easier for yourself, there's a couple of things there we could probably look at in terms of just cutting the workload of this time of year. Maybe not possible for this lambing, but certainly something for future lambings.
It definitely is, and I suppose now is the time, even though we're very busy and we're in the middle of our lambing, now is the time to kind of take a step back if possible, recognise the trouble that not the troubles, but maybe to recognise what you could change and make life a lot easier for next year. Maybe the setup of your lambing pens, the flow of getting ewes and lambs in and out of pens, for even cleaning out your lambing pens, that you're not caught in tight corners, that you've even a 4 or 5 foot passageway that you can get a wheelbarrow down, you can clean them, you have access to get ewes and lambs in and out of them. Just makes things an awful lot easier, I do often find, having a long stretch of lambing pens versus, a couple of lamb hens going down, you're cutting corners with them, it just leaves it tighter. just from a more of an easy point of view, and then I often notice that is the pens in the corners, they're nearly often forgotten about. You nearly forget about what ewes in there, what lambs in there, and you could find a day or two goes past, and they should have been out of grass last night or yesterday. They're the things you kind of just monitor to watch out for that.
No, and like that's the practical things go wrong. And funny, just when you mentioned that, the forgotten about one, there's probably two elements. We'll come back on that in a minute, but even a thing like, we'll all have problem ewes. We'll have either a ewe maybe with lambs are a wee bit weaker, or a ewe herself that might need a bit more attention, or it's off her feed for various reasons. Keeping them on the eye, Niall, how important is that at this stage of the season? Big
time, because if like that I mentioned there before, the compact lamb, and definitely the first 2 weeks, it's very, very important that them younger lambs, maybe the weaker lambs need an extra bit of care, it might need an extra tubing. You could have an issue with a ewe, etc., or triplets or quads in the. So what I always try to do with them is, we have 3 sheds for lambing here in the college. You always try to leave them the first 4 to 5 pens in each shed. Just so you're walking by them 10, 20 times a day, you're continuously looking in at them. Like I said, if she's down in the corner of the shed, there's a problem lamb with it, what's going to happen to that lamb if the right care doesn't get into that. So it's just leaving them just easy accessible, that you can witness them as you're walking by, and you can treat them then, or whatever has to be done throughout the day with them.
When the weather's wet, it's easy. We get out of them individual pens, you can nearly head straight to the field, but plenty of years there's not. Like the importance of a group pen in that setup, and maybe even what impact that can have on that ewe and lamb.
That's definitely it. Look, we're looking out at the moment on his lamb, and the weather's with us, and it does make life a lot easier. Reducing that stock rate in the shed, getting young ewes and lambs out. The grouping pen, and we have a great system here where you can let them ewes and lambs into it, and it's even just for 2 to 3 days. It helps the bonding with the ewe and her lambs. You can find them amongst the group. It just means then when they do go to grass, then they're a couple of days stronger, a couple of days older. And it does mean then when they are out of grass, they'll find their mothers better. They're better bonded animals to work away with themselves then.
They're a bit cuter, a wee bit wiser to the way things move. Well, it probably also gives you a chance to spot that one that maybe isn't just bonding as well as she should either.
Definitely is, and it's even something I might often find there, before this, even though it's great weather now, and some of us might jump the boat and let a ewe or 2 lambs, wherever it may be, straight out the grass from a lamb pen. But it's just ensuring that you go in there, you can double check, the others, the teats in them ewes, the bellies are full, lambs are given a good stretch. We all kind of concentrate a lot on the lamb health, but I think it's vitally important that you actually concentrate on the ewe health too before she does go to the grass, just to minimise any risks or issues that she may bring back out to herself.
No, I think it's a fair point. Look, we mentioned something there about that ewe, maybe should have went out a bit before. I'm thinking of something else you do in the college, and a lot of flocks are doing, and maybe it's more important, only you get, the memory mightn't be as good. Simple things like labels on gates, especially when you have more than one person working in shed, but even for yourself, that you put the basics on it, whether a lamb was tubed or not. How important is that, and what way do you work it?
Yeah, look, definitely in the college here, Kieran, I do find it's vitally important. Communication is a huge thing here. We all know at home what it's like. The ewe lamb, the pen she's in, you're tubing yourself 9 times out of 10. In here, look, we've staff in at night, or we could have students in at night. I do often find when I'm coming in the next morning, if there's 10 ewes after lambing that night, there's a huge difference in notes that wrote down. You might look at 3 lambs, you're wondering to yourself, are they fed? Do they need to be fed? Were they tubed? Was it a hard lamb? And you look at your notepad, it's a 4:30 this morning, they got 200 ml each of a stomach tube, and yes, it was a hard lamb, and I'll administrate the antibiotics then afterwards. But just so I'm aware of that, then at least I'm not coming in then at a time in the morning and I'm going through feeding everything when lambs are just either fed or they need to be in feed or being a top up after that. So it makes life a lot easier for myself, even to pass, or for the staff, from when I'm passing on key messages and lambs to look out for. We've, like you said there, we've notes left on every pen, when they were born, the amount of lambs, the type of lamb that she had, where they fed, stomach tubed, where they suckled, what time did that occur at, is there any issues you might have to follow up with on them lambs, weaker lambs to look after. We have a pen number, which I think is actually the best idea of them all. It's just above the pen. It's a simple thing. It could be a call, a text, or a note. Pen 5 had triplets, look at weaker lambs, and that just is an indication alone that you can follow through them for the rest of the day. At least you know them things. It's rather than me having to come in, go through every single lamb and pen, assess every lamb. At least at that stage, then which ones to look out for immediately. It saves. It's amazing. It does save a lot of time and a lot of pressure then afterwards.
I'm even thinking for myself here, it's just the simple things that you'll keep track of. Like when you mentioned the 10 lamb, when you are busy in the middle of it, even for you keeping yourself right, it can help. But that can be a simple bit of curry board tied to the gate, even a bit of cardboard tied on. It's just some bit of a mark that what's happening.
Yeah, and even like I have a notebook there, we have the notes on the gates, and it's brilliant. I often actually find the most used thing is the whiteboard at every entrance to the shed, just inside the door on it. And you might be running from one shed to another. If there's a marker sitting there, just write it down. Pen 5, put a star beside it. At least you'll remember that. At least if I see that, then I'll remember that tomorrow. What was that issue? I'll know to go to a notebook. You know what to look after. So it does. It's just trying to simplify the lamb as much as possible and carrying over that communication. Then.
You mentioned the whiteboard there. Like a lot of the stuff, it's not expensive, so it's not. It's a simple addition we can put in the shed, but it's just a way of having it there when you need it.
Just there, yeah. And once it's ready and it's available, and it's amazing then the amount of staff we'd have coming in here even at weekends or with students to follow on over with that, then it does leave life a lot easier then.
Look, we talked there about the setup of the pens and that. It's probably just a hectic 3 weeks. It maybe seem overkill in some ways, but I really don't think it is. Having a workstation set up where you can keep your supplies, where you can disinfect, wash, whether you have a sink or that in it. Talk to me a little bit about that.
A lot of farms do have it. The one we do work with here, we have our own station that's down in one of the main sheds. You have a fridge you can carry if you wanted surplus. Colostrum that's in it, or whatever vaccines you're keeping in, or whatever you may need. You have a sink, you have hot water, cold water, you have all them things just for disinfecting tubes. You have an antibiotic storage press. Everything's kept into it like that. There's a notepad or a notebook that's kept in it at all times, and everything's recording as it is used. And that does look. It means that everything's in one area. You know where you're going to find things when you do need them. And what I lab then in each of the sheds, then the llama facilities, like I mentioned earlier on, just a basket clipped onto one of the llama pens. So you just have your essentials basically in it: your lube, your gloves, your iodine, and your laminin applicators or ropes, and they're just there for you. And if you need that, and that's afterwards, you know where it is in the office. But I just find is once people leave things back in the area where they had it, it leaves lamb an awful lot more straightforward than after that.
And that might seem very simple, but I think anyone that's been in a lamb shed will know you could walk up and down it 20 times just to do a very simple job. So I take a point, like have it there with you, put it back in a place where you can find it.
Big time, that's it. And at least you know where it is. And it leaves a lot easier then for other staff or external staff, maybe that they're able to come in and rather than having, as you said, jumping around from other pens trying to find something, it's there. And once it's there and that's it, then it does leave. It just minimises the bit of extra running you have to do in a shed.
Neil, we're talking there just about staff and other people working in shed. You have students obviously working in the college flocks, and look, they're out on placement on farms as well. In terms of the work gear, hygiene, biosecurity coming in, talk to me a little bit about how you manage that and some practical tips farmers might want to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Well, number one is your footbed. Clean footwear. I do try to change the footpads here on a daily basis, if not every second day. We'll have open days. We've large numbers of people coming in and out of the college over the last couple of weeks and next couple of weeks. So it's quite important that they're changed at all times then in that to minimise it. Students here, look, they're very good. We've a storage area here where they'll actually leave off their work gear, their college work gear. They'll not be bringing that home, and they don't bring in any of their gear from home back into the college. So that's minimising the risks of it. It's a very tight moment for the risk of contamination of anything coming in. So trying to minimise that as best as possible. The big one I'd always find is having surplus gloves. Every student wears gloves here, even if they're not lamb and sheep, but just tagging lambs or doing any work, cleaning, preparing lamb and pens. They'll always be wearing gloves just at that. And I suppose then from a farmer point of view, just the basic things: wash your own feet, wear your overalls, ensuring that they're kept clean at all times, and foot bathing regularly. Just even regularly, with your own farm foot bath coming in and out of them sheds, because you never know what you're going to be passing on. And even from a farmer point of view there as well, like gloves, ensuring that you're wearing gloves, not just for lambing. If you're lambing your own ewes, that's fine, but make sure you have your gloves on for that too, and you're wearing standard gloves then for handling wee lambs, doing out any meal feeding, that may be just a risk to cross contamination of spreading something onto even your own sheep.
And there's also the risk to your own health as well. But I take a point, the simple thing with the work gear as well, keeping that change regularly through it. And then if there is somebody coming in and out, a student or somebody helping, that separate work gear is important, because that could be potentially a carrier for infection into your farm. We've covered our right few bits and pieces. I just maybe want to come back on something simple as well at this time of the year. We're talking about cutting down on problems. How do you deal with your problem ewes? And maybe on the more positive side, picking your place. I know you're doing a lot of recording in the flock, but you're doing some very basic things there that are useful, I think, on many farms. Yeah,
definitely is. I suppose the culling of the ewe, it's a great opportunity now to do it, because if she's a problem ewe now, there's no point in keeping her and recycling her for next year, because she's going to be still the same problem ewe. So there's enough workload as raised lamb, or create an extra workload. So going back to the basket with your lube, your iodine, your gloves, I would actually have sitting at the bottom of that is a pair of taggers and a cull tags. We just use normal slip-on orange tag. I know some farmers might have different methods of culling, but it's just doing it, have it there, because at the time you lamb that ewe, we all know what it's like. You take off a harness off a ewe, for example, and you put it across the gate, you put the ewe and her 2 or 3 new lambs into the pen, you forget about that ewe the next day or the day after. What happens with her, she's recycled back into the flock, she's going to do the exact same thing next year. So it's just putting that cull tag into the ewe, have it there straight away. The recording then, as you say, about the replacements, it's something I enjoy doing this year. I'm not getting into it now, but we do brand order ewes, they're going off with different groups of rams. We're choosing replacements, picked on different ram or ewe groups that's according as they're lambing down. And what I do then, just simple, we put a coloured disc in the back of their tags when we're tagging them at birth. And then this year we actually went with was on the back of the visual tag. It's just the year 2025, and according as they're lambing down, anything that's potential replacements of the right type of ewe, sired by the right ram that I wanted, and obviously a ewe that's not causing issues, and that she's a good motherability ewe, and all the rest that come into play with that. It just means now when it comes to weaning your lambs, you can draft off your potential ewe lambs after that. Like, you kind of know what you have.
It's the one bit of information you're going to capture now, you're not going to know again. Like,
it's just ensuring, especially the number one thing, you look at the replacements, that's fine. The culling, it's the most important time to cull your ewes is during this lambing season, during the season at lambing time, and don't let her skip through onto the following year, because we know what it's like. You'll see a ewe, let it be a prolapse, whatever it may be, and you say to yourself, there's no worse feeling thinking, do you remember when she done that last year? Because you don't want that to happen. Like, she's going to cause hassle. She takes up a lambing pen for 3 or 4 days. You don't have time to be looking after that. And look, it's just a cull tag straight in. And get that ewe removed then at a later stage.
Now, look, I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're still smack bang in the middle of lambing, so thanks for taking the time out to talk to us. Hopefully a couple of them tips will be useful. Good having you on. I'm sure we'll have you back again.
No problem. Thank you very much, Kieran.
We'll have to finish the episode up at this point. I'd like to thank Niall again for coming on and sharing some very useful practical tips that we can be implemented at the moment. That's it for me. For updates on our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your episodes.